Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. This is the Daily Medicine Transmission for December 7th, 2021. It is Pearl Harbor Day here in the United States. It's also my little brother's birthday, so happy birthday to my little brother. He's not so little anymore, of course, but he'll always be my little brother. So what a birthday to have, to be born on Pearl Harbor Day. So welcome back, everyone. And if you're new to this channel, welcome and thank you for stopping by. I have a little outro screen and video at the end of the video today, if you want to just stick around for just a few minutes to check it out, so I don't have to repeat myself every single time with all of the information about how you can book a session with me, how you can get more information, which is on the website, and all of that stuff's in the description box below, and also too how you can support this work in this channel. So how is everyone feeling today? It does seem like, and some people did report this yesterday, and more are coming along for the ride, it seems like, but it does seem like something kind of broke loose. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything in terms of if it's good or it's bad, it's favorable, unfavorable. It just feels like that something broke loose. And with the eclipse, the door definitely closed with the solar eclipse. And what came with us through the doorway is certainly still going to stay with us. And that door is shut now. And so perhaps there has been some residual interaction or some residual feelings about what has come through the doorway with us now that it is shut, and we are still taking it with us, whatever it is, right? This is a unique journey for all of us. And of course, we're all kind of going to the same place together, but how we experience that along the way is a result of our own unique perspective and our own choices that we make along the way. So how is everyone feeling? Rest can make a big difference in your life. And so for me personally, I finally got some actual sleep and I feel a lot better and much more rested. And so those things go hand in hand, right? The anxiety or depression or any kind of mental health symptoms that we may be experiencing tend to have this relationship with our sleep patterns, of course, going both ways, right? It can disrupt our sleep, and then our disrupted sleep can impact those symptoms or those challenges. And it's just this perpetual feedback loop that can be really hard to break. So I hope everyone is doing what they know that they can do for themselves in order to take care of themselves, take care of their bodies, right? Take care of their minds and their emotional stability, because even though the door has closed and we are now in this fully into the germination and the eventual growth of what this eclipse cycle has really represented for us, I do feel like that the real work is about to begin, right? And what is that real work? It is about staying in our still point at the center of chaos. It is maintaining simple organic integrity, right? Finding where we are able to connect in with the planetary grid, with our own organic integrity, of course, and a sense of who we are outside of all of the trappings of the matrix that would love to project itself onto us as if we were blank screens or soulless NPCs that just go around and are just here to fill in space for other people's adventures. And that's just not how it is anymore. Everybody's getting an equal vote these days, and it has an impact on how things are transpiring. So I hope everyone is feeling better. It does feel like that it is like I said, that there is something broke loose. I think there was a really strong saturation, a very heavy saturation, density even of emotions that came into this time frame and is coming into this moment. So we have some challenging astrology. We have the first of the really powerful squares to Mercury, or to Neptune, excuse me, because it is Mercury that's going to be doing so today. All of these Sagittarius with our now prograde or direct motion Neptune. And squares, the nature of squares, of course, is to challenge and they create friction. They may send us off into some other direction. We are talking about mutable energy. Sagittarius is mutable fire. Pisces is mutable water. It means that it's malleable, it's flexible, it's adaptable. We can easily shift and change and morph within that element. And so it's easy to change. It's easy to be flexible. It is easy to adapt when we're looking at malleable energy, but also too, it's really easy to conform, and it's really easy to shift our shape, and not necessarily a way that actually corresponds to simple organic integrity. So in order to, be able to fill in the gaps, or to fill the vessel that we're provided. So sometimes those fixed energies like Scorpio and Leo, right, and Aquarius, where our moon is at today, sometimes those fixed energies, as stubborn and as substantial as they may seem sometimes, especially Taurus, right? Fixed earth is probably one of the most stubborn signs. But honestly, all of the fixed energies have their way of being stubborn in their own way, right? Because they're fixed, right? There's no room for anything other than the full essence of that element. But there's something to be said for that too. And of course we have Mars in Scorpio still, that's fixed. We have Jupiter in Aquarius, that is fixed. They are going to also square each other tomorrow. So we'll discuss all of those astrological aspects in detail when we get into the chart for today. But the moon is now in Aquarius, and I do feel like that really has actually given us a sense of detachment emotionally, so that we can see the full picture, that we can adapt to the full picture with the moon, right? That we have a sense of not total detachment, as in being like detached from reality or totally delusional, but detached from the full immersion into the water that would be Pisces, right? And this is where psychosis can really breed, is in Pisces, right? It's the realm where mystics swim and psychotics drown. And so with Neptune involved now in its prograde motion, it's gotten so much more intense. And for all of the meaning, ambition, and big picture ideas, right? The sky is the limit with Sagittarius in terms of our action and what we can do together. The square to Neptune over and over, Mercury, the sun, eventually Mars, right? And even when the moon comes back around again next month, right before well, actually, it'll technically be this month, right before a very powerful full moon at the galactic center, the sun at the galactic center, the full moon in Gemini. So right before that happens, the moon will come back around again and will square Neptune in the same position for all of the meaning and big picture optimism that Sagittarius represents, and the strength that we gather from the meaning and the action that we take based on that meaning. All of those things, they really are no match for a prograde Neptune in Pisces that is really challenging us to not just act act out where we're going, right? And thinking that's going to take us there, but to also at the same time be able to fully immerse ourselves in the entirety of the experience and still trust where we're going. This is going to be a big test over the next couple of weeks. And I think that with the full moon this month, the full moon that'll be in its fullness at the galactic center, we're going to finally see, at least from a mental perspective and in terms of the ideas, the concepts, and the realm of communication, right? All of these Gemini types of aspects are we're going to see what it is that we truly do have to let go of in terms of what we know and what we think we know and what we feel about all of the range of ideas that we have been working with for a while now. It's this whole time with the moon, or the moon. Oh, I got moon on the brain. This whole time with the North Node, Rahu in Gemini, which is certainly coming to not an end, but well, it is coming to an end, but this realm of working with ideas, working with concepts, working with the full range of the mental sphere, that which is the very, very beginning, right? In the beginning, there was the word. And so, we've been working with this concept in terms of where we're all being pulled at a soul level now for the last 18 months. And we are soon going to move into a fully experiential type of zone here. So when we do get to this full moon in right before the solstice, actually, we will see what we have to release, even though, and specifically what we have accumulated in terms of our own ideas, how we feel about the ideas and the concepts and the knowledge that we've accumulated. What is weighing us down? You know, what is it that we can't actually capitalize on? What is it that is a burden of debt in our mind and in our thoughts and in the information that we have gathered? What is it we have to release? And we will get a pretty good view of that with the full moon. So we have Black Moon Lilith in Gemini right now in her retrograde. This has been really important. That means she's soon going to actually meet the North Node again. Asteroid Ceres is going to come into a conjunction with Rahu, or the North Node, in the next day or so as well. And so there is a very strong connection with the feminine, again, coming into alignment with where we are being drawn at a soul level in order to grow and evolve. And so, but with, which is of course the opposite of Gemini, with Mercury, with the Sun especially, and even with K2, right, of where the attention and the focus and our propensity to express ourselves and to find our authentic voice is really in the meaning that we have developed as a result of our communal activity. And that really does make up the meaning of society, right? The bigger picture and the bigger picture and, what it is that we can actually create together when we do come together and actually perform that transmutational process, or the alchemy that is represented by Sagittarius. So, I mean, like I said, it's a lot of optimism, and there's this idea that we can do anything, that, and as long as we keep acting in accordance with that, we can actually get to the place that we know we're going to get to. And, Neptune's going to challenge that every step of the way. And today is that first real challenge in terms of our outward expression, because Mercury, right, the realm of the mind, what we think, is going to, which is at its detriment, by the way. So when Mercury is kind of in this realm of just considering big picture ideas, sometimes it's not very powerful, is it? So, because it wants to work on details, right? It wants to analyze information, gather data, right? Not actually put it together and come to any conclusions. So I think that we're going to find ourselves starting to actually experience and live out all of these really very challenging squares, right? Especially this square, these mutable squares. And the good news is it does allow us to be very malleable and kind of move things around in terms of our mental perspective, in terms of our the realm of our mind and our nervous system, right? How our nervous system interacts with the world directly in front of us. We may be really kind of latched on to this big picture. And it's not to say that this is something that we shouldn't be at least focusing on to some extent or pay attention to, but it is the realm of the experience itself, the full immersion in the experience, spiritually, cosmically, transcendentally and in the experience of the full collective unconscious, right? It's one thing to really idealize the meaning and the togetherness and what we can create. It's a totally different experience, which is why Sagittarius and Pisces, they're naturally square to each other. It's a different experience entirely to feel what it feels like to be immersed into the full collective unconscious, flaws and all, right? That's the thing about Pisces, is that it's everything, whether you like it or not, you know, and Sagittarius really kind of focuses just on what's up here, right? This is the big picture and all the optimism, just like Jupiter or Zeus as an archetypal figure, right? He don't care. He's not worried about what humans are doing. Jupiter and Zeus as an archetypal figure is focused on one realm, which is up here, the heavens, right? What's going on in that area. So I think that oh boy, I really struggle a lot with this this constant dance around the reality of what I'm experiencing, even when it's not my reality in my immediate life, and seeming like that it's just propagating this negativity, because it's not. But I can't not, you know, what I'm picking up on is that the real work is about to start happening. And there's a lot of different tells, right? If you're really paying attention, you'll notice that certain things pop up and there are moves being made and decisions being made and announcements being made that in and of themselves may not seem that big of a deal. But when you start connecting the dots, putting the pieces together in the puzzle, you're like, oh, something big's about to drop. And I think that thankfully, like I said, with the moon in Aquarius, it is kind of allowing us to take a step back, not even take a step back, but to not be immersed in the experience of it, which is pretty difficult with Neptune involved, of course, in Pisces. But at least in this moment, we have each of us this opportunity internally to be the water bearer, right? To hold the intensity of the emotion and the feeling that holds us all together, right? The full experience of being all together, which is Pisces. We have the capacity to hold that without identifying with it or being completely dissolved into it, right? We can hold the charge that is what Aquarius ultimately represents, the power that moves through the collective. So I'm thankful, honestly, for this moon in Aquarius right now, especially with this Mercury Neptune square today. So let's get into the reading. Well, actually, I'm going to check in with the chat real quick in the stream and just see kind of how it's going here. Everything seems to be streaming just fine, so that's great. And what we're going to do is just get into the reading and start unpacking this a little bit. So, and we'll get the bowl out and we will ground ourselves to receive this transmission here. So, I mean, you can even see here that there is Ten of Cups, right? The being totally satiated, but it's reversed, right? I think that a lot of people can really relate to this. You know, it's an overwhelm, almost too much, almost satiated too much. And we did have Mars. This is Mars in Pisces, the last decan of Pisces, which is where Neptune is right now. Is now officially in that last decan of Pisces. Mars in the last decan of Scorpio right now at a very aggressive and forceful glorification of the communal values that Scorpio ultimately shows us the power. So we have the devil reversed here in the center of the reading. So you know, I read this differently than Thoth. The Thoth deck is meant to be read, just because I feel like that this is a pretty good indication, you know, especially after the moon had passed over Venus and Pluto last night into this morning and moved through the rest of Capricorn. I feel like that many of us got an idea of like, yeah, the script is flipping now, but there will always be there will always be, well, not always, but in this instance, I would say there will be a counteract. And we see the chess game is right here. And that's how a chess game works. Your opponent makes a move and then you respond to it at a material level, which is the devil in the tarot, is about the material existence. If you're feeling disempowered, there certainly is going to be a backlash. But this reading is for us, right? And we see, look at who it is. It's the Princess of Wands again, right? She's back. She's back and she's upright in terms of what to expect or the effect of this cause and effect relationship. There's a real opportunity to engage with enthusiasm and joy and passion for life again, even though I think we've been really overwhelmed with the full feeling experience. I mean, satiated is putting it mildly, as far as I can tell. I think that we've been almost... you can have sometimes you just shut down because it's just like too much, right? This is what happens when your nervous system is activated and stimulated to the point where you can't handle anymore. And so this is actually part of your nervous system's autonomic nervous system, especially your sympathetic nervous system, that really does regulate things for, fight, flight, or freeze. And sometimes when your nervous system is overloaded with either fear or trauma in any way, that the freeze is a very I wouldn't say unacknowledged, but it is, because it's not something that has been, we only think about fight or flight, right? That duality of like either you run away or you fight. And there hasn't been a ton of mainstream focus on the third aspect of that, which is the freeze, right? And that's very real. Anyway, sometimes the overwhelm emotionally can just kind of paralyze us. That yesterday, I feel like the paralysis. So I'm going to get the bowl here, and we're going to ground ourselves and be ready to receive this transmission. Because I do think with the moon in Aquarius too, what I do feel is a lot more electricity moving through us. And when you are satiated with water, remember water is like a primary conductor of electricity, right? This is important to consider, because on the one hand, as the water bearer that Aquarius is, it does allow for the conduction of of the power to move through the collective of people who are held together by relationship. It's the lightning bolt of power can move through very easily and unimpeded when there's nothing else blocking it. But at the same time, I do feel a lot of higher energy moving through us, and it's important that we still stay very grounded and get those lower chakras kind of spinning in the right way and not out of control. So I want everybody to take a moment here to either sit or feel your feet on the ground and feel an extension of root system in some ways, extending out of your root chakra down through your legs, out of the bottom of your feet, down into the layers of the earth. So I want everybody to take a deep breath in, deep diaphragmatic breath in. And release. Remember, this bowl is tuned actually to C major, which does correspond to the root chakra. So you can use those tones to make corrections and energetically tune up different energy centers in your body, depending on which ones that you use. So now that we are here and ready for the transmission, let's start here. So Ten of Cups, like I said, this is Mars in Pisces, or being completely satiated. And it also represents the end of a cycle. So the end and the beginning of a cycle, especially an emotional cycle. And with Pisces, that is also what we're looking at a more collective level as well. When you get to Pisces, or the 12th house, that's the end of a growing cycle, just like in nature, actually. Pisces time of the year, especially in the northern hemisphere, Pisces time of the year is the end, because when we get to the spring equinox, that does signal that we are at an even distribution of light and dark again, and that we are going to be moving more primarily into light as opposed to darkness. And this is when the growing season officially begins. And it's because plants need access to light in order to survive. This is how, photons are how plants are able to participate in the process of photosynthesis. Anyway, so we are coming to an end of a cycle, or we had come to an end of a cycle. Now, when this card is reversed, it can certainly signal that there's an inner emptiness, right? The cycle has come to an end, but we don't feel fulfilled at all. We could waste our energy, right? Rather than keeping it in kind of a closed loop system, perhaps being, leaking energy, wasting our energy, not really holding our energy in a really strong and clear toroidal field. We might just be wasting it. There may be a sentimentality that goes along with this, because the cycle again has ended, but we're feeling sentimental about what has ended and not really releasing it. So kind of holding on to memories and kind of nostalgic. And being sentimental in and of itself is not a negative thing. But when we are trying to, align with the cyclical nature of things, and we do have to just let go, sometimes the sentimentality has us energetically holding on to things that are really meant to be released back into the field of consciousness, or back to source. So again, like I said, we could waste. Sometimes this could be very debaucherous because, again, we haven't really let go of the cycle. So we keep kind of like influencing ourselves, kind of engaging in an emotional or feeling-based energy that is meant to just keep feeding us rather than the cycle itself. So this also could signal that we are seeking this inner completion that this represents within ourselves when it's reversed. So it's up to us whether we use our experiences or not to seek this inner completion. But I also feel, for the most part, that we've come to the end, and it's been a very forceful and very strong flow of energy. I mean, just looking at this card, you can see that the water is shooting out of these cups in a downward motion. We're looking at the actual structure of the tree of life, and it's like sheets of water. It almost looks like it's light in some ways because of the color of it and the way that it looks, but it also looks like sheets of water. But we do tell that it's very forceful. So even in its reversal, it's still just as forceful, but we may be having a hard time accepting it. We may have had a difficult time. We may have been oversaturated with it and not very easily able to allow the cycle to end and begin. And there's all kinds of ways that this can be expressed. But I do feel ultimately that there has been we have been satiated emotionally and overwhelmed in a lot of ways. And perhaps the reversal here is just our difficulty being able to hold the entirety of this, even if the cycle is coming around to its end and its beginning simultaneously. And there could also be a rejection of the fact that the cycle is ending as well, and beginning a new one. And that's where maybe the sentimentality comes from, that keeps us kind of locked in an old resonance, or kept us locked in a different pattern that we aren't ready to let go of, even though it's almost being forced out of us. So this is our causal factor coming into the moment. And either way you look at it, we have the devil reversed, right? And we've seen this card many times. It's the, the goat with that smile, that smirk on its face, and knows what's going on. And it's very phallic. I mean, it's very sexual in terms of the procreative power of the physical universe, and showing what it actually is, right? And the awesome machinery of nature, as Carl Sagan had coined it. This is the machinery of nature. It is whatever types of activities that are really kind of exemplified, if you think about it, with Scorpio and Sagittarius, in terms of Scorpio being the urge and the power of that sexual urge, and then Sagittarius, the act itself, right? The friction and the bringing together of these two opposite ends of the spectrum here. And if you think about it from a procreative standpoint, you're bringing the two biological sexes together that would create an actual new human being, or any being. It doesn't have to be human, obviously, bringing it together in order to create something new. This is the machinery of nature in action. And so the goat kind of has this smile on its face, and has the third eye open, and is standing in like the center of all of this, and it has the staff with the sun disc here, and the feathers and the serpents on either side. And the key here is obviously it's very obvious what the symbolism is, but even more so is the two these two spheres that are two sex cells in meiosis, right? This is the splitting of the sex cells in the actual, in the testicles of the male and the ovaries of the female. This is how those sex cells of the sperm and the ovum are created. They separate and give one half of the chromosome that will eventually travel into this process. Anyway, I mean, this is not meant to be in and of itself the evil that the devil represents. It becomes the devil when we buy into the illusion that this is all there is to our existence. And when you start worshiping materialism, as we've talked about many times here, this is where you get trapped in these types of agendas. So in the reversal, and number 15, by the way, reduces down to 6, and 6 is, of course, everybody, we've gotten caught all up in the symbolism of 666 and the number of the beast and the mark of the beast and all that stuff. But really, I mean, if you break it down to a very base, and I've talked about this already, you break it down to the very basic elements of matter. The sixth element of the periodic table is carbon, which is the basis of our organic life, right? So all of these different connections about the material world here, and the fact that it is upside down, right? It's reversed. I mean, this can mean a lot of different things, but I do feel like that this represents very strongly that the institutions of these institutions that are Capricornian in nature, of course, with Pluto involved and the moon just passing by, are falling away. We also may feel a sense of disempowerment, as a result of, this cycle coming to an end emotionally. But I do really strongly feel like that what we're seeing here and what we're experiencing and what is at the heart of the matter is the dissolution and the destruction of the current matrix of reality right here. And we feel it and we know it. And it's at the center of all of it is the flipping of this. And some people are holding on for dear life. Other people are like, it can't come soon enough. Other people are controlling this demolition. And there are both sides of this chess game. I'm telling you, they are both controlling this demolition. And it's really, really important that we understand that. Because if we think that it's just one side of this chess game that's controlling this demolition, then You think whatever you want, right? You believe whatever you want. I'm here to tell you that I am of the opinion, and my own guidance has led me to the conclusion that both sides are controlling this demolition, and we are not involved in this process as far as they're concerned. We are just the pieces on the board. So either way you look at it, it's dissolving, it's being destroyed. And when the moon passed over Pluto last night, I do feel like that became something very very real to us. So one thing I'd love, I don't actually want to share it at all because anyway, but I will share it because I think it fits into this really, really, really well, and it's going to be kind of a teachable moment. So, I just watched The Matrix. We talked about this yesterday. We watched the whole trilogy over the weekend. Now, back in the summer, at the Lionsgate, I had a very, very potent astral experience where the star seeds, especially this, and I mean, when we're talking about the Lionsgate and Sirius, right? That the Syrian star seeds specifically, but all the star seeds really. What I experienced was that they were, we were all coming together using our voice, like actually using our physical vibration through our voice to make an impact and to, I wouldn't necessarily say raise the vibration. What it's doing is allowing us to resonate with an already raised vibration, right? It brings us to that resonance. And the indigenous have known this for eons. And so we were in this experience, and all of the little Agent Smiths, and there's this specific person actually that this was represented to me as, that I'm not necessarily, I don't see the need to share it, but it did represent a certain figure in a certain subgroup of a certain subgroup that this Agent Smith was revealed to me as. And this goes along with intentions, right? And what happened in the Matrix? What was Agent Smith able to do? All of those agents were able to walk in, right? They were able to walk in at any point to anyone who's plugged into the Matrix, which is all of us, right? So anyone who is unaware and is still plugged into the Matrix through the process of the machine world, right? Not on the ships and in Zion when they're intentionally plugging in to go in and infiltrate. When people were plugged in, unbeknownst to me, unbeknownst to themselves, agents can walk in, which are programs, right? Can walk in at any point. So I feel like that was a pretty good indication that sometimes people can have negative walk-ins, and they call that a possession. I don't think that's the same thing as a possession necessarily, although it has similar things. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that the Ancient Smiths were going crazy because the starseeds came and they were all using their voice to, resonate with the higher frequency and resonance of the higher densities that we are going to and that the planet has already gotten to. So last night I had a dream and a very powerful experience where that was coming back around again, and the Agent Smiths were like coming to my house, like my parents' house, and they were, there was no matter how many emergency services I tried to call, no matter how much outside help I was trying to get, nothing was working. And the Agent Smiths were definitely attempting to descend. And what was working and what I did see was that there was a lot of communal help. There was a lot of people who are around that were also to be of assistance. And there were other tools that I had access to. So I do feel like that we are going to find that even though we are this reversed devil card, or the further destruction of and demolition of our reality as we know it, controlled or not, there may be, I do feel like that we're going to see, and based on this reading as well, that there is going to be, the next moves are going to be made, and because the chess game is still happening. It really, truly is. So when we look at where we are rooted energetically, where our subconscious is maybe rooted, perhaps some things that we're not fully aware of yet, but are still very much at the root of us energetically, is the Queen of Keys, and she is reversed. And so this represents actual people, either us or people in our life, and they don't have to necessarily be anything more than somebody in your life represents these things to you in order to show you something, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be anybody you know in real time. It can be, again, a figure that is presented to you in some sort of synchronicity, or it could be you as a person, or this aspect of you that is rooting you energetically. And so when the Queen of Keys is reversed, I mean, there's a lot of dispute, differences of opinion, emotional distancing with a woman of authority, right? A position that you have earned may not be as fulfilling, or you may lose it. And it's time to consider what your aspirations really are. And as much as this is kind of troubling to have this, to maybe embody this, especially in terms of what is going on subconsciously for each of us, or what's going on in the seat of our energetic creation. The other thing about it is it's showing us something really important. There may be disputes, differences of opinion. We may feel disempowered in terms of our own authority over our life. And that may be a result of a lot of things, but this is where we are. And I feel like this is going to be a direct result of this door of the eclipse closing and us now entering this new realm. So, and there's some really good guidance here ultimately to help with this that we're going to address in terms of letting in your higher self. Because if you are strictly relying on just the material reality that is represented by Capricorn, it may be the zenith and the top and the pinnacle of weight and contribute to, but it's not the end. And if that's where we get stuck and that's where we're finding all of our power, when it's, this reversal can be very disconcerting and disempowering. And so we're going to see here that the guidance in terms of letting the light back in, and realizing that the light is coming back, right? Even if in this moment we're not feeling very steady and we don't feel very much like we're in control or in authority of our material reality, okay? This person is very confident in what she has and what she's responsible for. And with Venus in Capricorn, of course, she's going to meet Pluto soon, and then she's going to pass Pluto, and then she's going to station retrograde. So we should be prepared for, and even more of an experience that will have us kind of retracting and going inward and literally going through the retrograde process of what is valuable to me in terms of this whole process? Where is my value? What allows me to feel confident and safe and secure in not only just my material world or my body or my resources, but the whole thing, what's transpiring in a material way. So even if you're feeling this reversal at the root of things, there's something here about the light coming back that we have to keep in mind in order to not totally lose ourselves. And I do believe that this is part of the process, and it's about getting to the precipice, right? It's only when you reach the edge that you are truly willing to change, because we're habit and security. And to be honest, I mean, we've been locked into a mindset that has been created for us with false projections and holographic realities now, just like the Matrix, for a long time. Imagine waking up in that pod in the machine world and being like, what in the hell is happening here? So it's okay if you're feeling this way. And I also would say, don't be surprised if this is something that is really stirring underneath. you're not fully aware of it, or maybe it is in the back of your mind, maybe it is running in the background, or maybe it's just something that is you're feeling strongly, but it's not where your awareness necessarily is. Well, where is our awareness? Well, here is the Buddha prepares, and maybe, my God, I can never find a mouse pad that works. All right, so here's the Buddha prepares, number 13, right? This is the idea here that we are putting our attention and conscious awareness, and where we can release our energy, though. We may feel disempowered, not very confident. Perhaps we're not feeling like we're in charge of our own life, or have any or feeling that dispute. Maybe we are really confused about somebody that had been in a position of authority for us, or that we trusted, that was just like, wait a minute, something is off. I mean, that definitely does seem, at least for me, something is very off in this realm. And so rather than acting on it, we're being really guided, I think, right now to be still under the Bodhi tree, right? Time of inner preparation before we act. Reach within to find our own power, right? Rather than acting out because we are feeling uncomfortable. Perhaps we have these disputes within ourselves, or in between other people in our life. Perhaps something material is being taken away, or that we've lost something, or questioning something. And so, and this is certainly added onto when we get to the heart of the matter, which is really the dissolution and the destruction and crumbling of the actual reality itself, the material reality that we know and have relied upon for so long. So the way that we can really release our power in this situation, I think, is in this preparation time, right? Sit under the Bodhi in prayer, to be in stillness and silence, and gather our resources from within. Because we're trying to gather them from a place that may be, like sand slipping through our fingers at this point. So I think we can really release our own power. And it's very powerful, right? Mars in Pisces, and this 10 of Cups, is, especially in its reversal, is very powerful. And it's powerful in a way that we're really, I think, collectively struggling to accept it or to hold it, right? It could be like, we could find ourselves like drowning in some ways, or just like, I just had a really awful vision of what this could be reversed, and it's kind of like waterboarding. It's just overwhelming and torturous. So, and I think that's very extreme, right? But that's definitely what just came to mind. So what can we do? We can find our stillness. We can find the time for inner preparation. We can really release our energy through this process right now, rather than acting out of instinct, maybe, on what is transpiring, what has transpired, and what's happening right in front of us too, and how we're feeling about it at some deep level. I think we can really help ourselves in this moment by aligning with this type of energy. Now, and where we can... what do we, whoops, here we go. What can we expect here? I mean, ultimately, we can expect, why won't you go away? There we go. Ultimately, what we can expect here is, the upright version of the Princess of Wands, which is courage and enthusiasm and joy and courage. Courage is a big one, right? And it's not because she has to, she's just so... she's just so comfortable and powerful that the courage just comes naturally, right? Venus in the fire signs, and here's Vesta right here, the flame on the pedestal, the hearth flame that holds all of us together and is the eternal flame of our own soul and our own spirit. So I think that ultimately, where it's headed is joy, enthusiasm, exercising courage, and feeling a sense of freedom, very much so, and very powerful, right? But it's going to it's going to come through, I think, some really disciplined introspection and stillness, rather than getting caught in the demolition, regardless if it's controlled or not. And I think that's really important to consider. So here's the light of the world when it comes to our guidance. In terms of this down here. So again, knocking on the door. And so when this card is reversed, again, it's pointing to the fact that something disruptive has thrown us off our balance. Well, when you have the Queen of Keys reversed, I would say that in itself is the disruption that has thrown us off balance. We've stopped focusing on our inner priorities of spiritual truth and only really focus on them when it suits our personal needs. Ooh, wow. I mean, that's easily, we can easily see that in situations where people don't, find themselves when they're being really, really challenged in life and then turning to prayer or something like that, right? It's only when we find our own personal needs being impacted in any way that some people will finally turn to their higher self or to source or God or however you think about it. And then, but this is really saying that that's not really the way. I mean, the real path of mastery and focusing on our inner priorities of spiritual truth has to be a constant thing all the time. It's really hard work. And sometimes we use our connection to source or our higher self to fulfill our personal needs, not even realizing it. This is some of the most insidious type of, intention here, because the road to hell is paved with good intentions. We all have good intentions. That doesn't mean that we're actually in alignment with our higher self through those intentions. We just have good intentions. So when you turn away from your higher self, you turn away from your greatest source of power. When you turn away from God, for instance, you turn away from the greatest source of power. And this is a reminder about that and showing that is the case. And maybe that's a big part of the reason why we may feel turned on our head in terms of our own authority and confidence in our material safety and reality here, and just our own connection to the world in general. So the penguin, in terms of the animal messages, right? The animals, they don't ever worry about this stuff. Animals don't have intention. Animals just are, which is why they are such potent messengers for us. And starseeds would be, especially things like, people that are Syrian starseeds and maybe Pleiadian starseeds in particular. Especially Syrian starseeds. These, we're the people that tend to really communicate directly with the animals and the plants and the elementals really strongly. So, but the penguin in particular, it says the period of darkness that you've been experiencing is now passing. It doesn't mean that there isn't going to be more. It is really pointing to the fact that we've experienced so much darkness in our lives already, and many of the lightworkers, starseeds, and wanderers have gone through many instances in their past already of clearing away density of trauma and experiencing the trauma to begin with in order to prepare for these moments. And so it's not that the period of darkness is passing and it's never coming back. It's the fact that our period of darkness has passed, and maybe you had been experiencing it recently. Maybe this is a longer cycle that has been playing out for you. But what it has done is conditioned us to then stand with courage in the face of new challenges, right? It doesn't mean that there isn't any. And in fact, I do feel very strongly that we are about to face a lot of really intense challenges. It's really not going to break loose until February in terms of the astrology. Now, there's plenty of opportunities to get ourselves back on track. And this, again, the light of the world being reversed is a pretty good indication that if you're only like addressing your higher self when it suits your needs, or when you're feeling good, or when you're feeling bad, that's the other thing too, that you are not, that's not going to really help you in the face of some challenging situations. But let's be reminded here that we've already, many of us have already been through these situations, and they are priming us in order to address the challenges now with courage and with a sense of, I've gone through these. And so you can be the light of the world for other people too. That's the other thing in terms of this responsibility and being a volunteer. You volunteered for this mission. And it's not because you wanted anything out of it other than seeing Earth as a planet and humans as a species make the quantum leap in global consciousness. And so there's so much good to be had in terms of that, but we also have to realize that it's not all for nothing, but we have to stay vigilant about our spiritual practices and our discernment and interacting with our inner source of being and knowing, because that's where it's all going to come from. So, and speaking of which, we have to also be open to receive, and we can't do that. It is a time of good fortune and abundance. So be willing to receive all the good things in your life, right? Attitude of gratitude is the key to abundance, right? To be, to have a feeling of blessedness and gratitude already for what is here. Even the most difficult situations, we can have gratitude for, because we learn and grow from them. So we also have to be open to receive if we want to receive good fortune and abundance. We can't be shut down. So part of the Buddha Prepares is not only a time of preparation and gathering our inner power, but it's allowing us to be still and to be open to receive this abundance, good fortune, and all of the good things that are coming our way, right? We have to be open to it. And here is our 3 of Keys, which is the chess game. Just a reminder, right, that there is political and social conflict that's surrounding us. We may be in store for very difficult interactions between very clearly divided groups of people. And to remember that people, for the most part, especially if you're engaged in this chess game, are out for themselves. And we have to be very real with ourselves about this, right? Again, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Are you using your spirituality and your gifts and your evolved, consciousness, however you look at this? Are you using it just for your own ends, right? Or are you here for the big picture, right? People are out for themselves, and it's really hard to know what people's motives are when you're playing a game like chess, because it's so masterful and there's so much strategy involved. So one of the things we can do is take an emotional step back. So great time to do that with a moon in Aquarius, by the way. And also too, with the Buddha Prepares, that's exactly what you're doing, because you're kind of retracting in a little bit, and you're doing this inner preparation by being still, being quiet, not being disturbed by all of the conflict outside of you. The more involved you get, the more heated it's going to be. So it's important that we maintain an inner peace and be an observer while people around us are just like spiraling out as they serve their own agendas, whatever they are. And that doesn't mean you can't be compassionate. Doesn't mean that you can't still love those people or forgive them if they've done something or made choices that have had a very negative impact on you. It doesn't mean you can't. Those things are not mutually exclusive, but you can be the observer. You can witness what's going on. You can and not get involved and take an emotional step back. And when you do that, then you're creating space for abundance. The more you engage in this conflict, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't advocate for yourself, stand up for yourself. This is where the courage is going to come in. Big time. Big time. We're going to need courage, and we've gone through so much already that we do have it, but we can't get pulled into the drama and pulled into the conflict, because that's exactly what it's there to do, is to take us out of our center, and then we don't have space within for the actual abundance and the good fortune that we know is coming for all of us, because that's kind of the Sagittarian element, right? This is the Sagittarian element, and that square with Mercury and Neptune right now is we can easily get pulled in to the conflict, which is all Sagittarius is the chess game, right? It's the conflict that allows us to create something new. If we get pulled into it and think that that's all there is, this is where we're going to have, I think, some struggle here. So that's pretty potent, I would say. Ultimately, I mean, the Princess of Wands keeps coming up and around, you know, up and down, and it's just showing us too how much that passion and enthusiasm and joy for life is so easily manipulated for somebody else's gain. But what we're seeing here in terms of an outcome is this potential of really finding this joy in life, and to really embody our courage in a way where we're free. We're free, and we're confident, and we are moving forward and riding the flame, right? Because it is the flame that purifies, isn't it? So let's move on here to the astrology for this transmission today. And yeah, so let's see here. Let me check in with the chat and make sure everything's good still. Okay. Always good to keep an eye on things. So here we find, well, that's not what we're going to look at first, but we will look at this because the asteroid goddesses today are pretty active as well. So let's close a couple windows here, and we will get to, first of all, we're going to look into the moon transits for today, because like I said, the moon is now in Aquarius. So oops, let's make sure, there we go, make sure that this is where it needs to be. All right, friends, here we go. So, and then we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna look at the asteroid goddesses. We're gonna look at Black Moon Lilith, and there's some connections, really strong connections with those asteroids, with Uranus today as well. So important to look at those things. And then we'll look a little bit at the main transits for tomorrow, which is going to mostly be Mars in Aquarius. And considering that the moon is in Aquarius, that means the moon's going to eventually meet Jupiter tomorrow as well. So a lot more focus on that end of the chart, right? In terms of Capricorn and Aquarius, and then the moon moves into Pisces. So first, the moon had come into Aquarius this morning. Let's go back just a minute just to show you. You know, pretty early this morning here on the East Coast, about 6 a.m. probably. So then comes into Aquarius, and the first real aspect that it makes is a trine with Rahu. So this, we've talked about where Rahu is plenty, because it's been sitting at this 1 to 2 degree mark for quite a while now, because the nodes of the moon are just like the true node, right? You can measure it in terms of an average, just like Black Moon Lilith, but the nodes of the moon also oscillates, because there's a wobble. Just, you know, the moon has a wobble, the earth has a wobble on its axis, and so it creates these you know, this back and forth with the position of the nodes or Black Moon Lilith or anything like that. So the moon meets in a trine with Rahu, and we are really challenged to stay open to accepting, right? It's one thing to think about things and to access the full range of the unconscious psyche, which is really that Alcyon or first degree of Gemini. The contrast to that is to receive it and to be open to receive it and to kind of clear the mind and be ready to receive it. So this is where we've been drawn. We're being drawn at a soul level in this direction, which has been very difficult, I think, for a lot of people, because, and in some ways it's not difficult at all to just be like, okay, I'm just waiting, I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm open, and I'm ready to receive. And just like the ladybug in the intuitive reading, we have to actually create a space. You have to, if you want Santa, if you want Santa to come down the chimney and fill your stockings, you got to put a stocking. right? And so we have to put something, we have to create a space. And we've been drawn to this place now for weeks and weeks and weeks. Now, the moon at 2 degrees of Aquarius is the unexpected thunderstorm that represents nature will come in and take away what humanity makes in a hot flash. Right? The unexpected thunderstorm. And it really does challenge our ability to be very flexible and to make quick adjustments in the face of circumstances that we don't have any control over. And so again, there's the moon representing our feelings and how we adapt, and this kind of this urge and the space within us. We have to be ready for anything in some ways and adjust quickly. But the trine, this air trine to the North Node or Rahu, is providing is a foundation or a base and a very strong harmony between these two positions. And remember, we're talking about the moon and her own North Node in a trine. So it's very karmic, it's very feminine, it's very feeling based, it's very much rooted in our subconscious, and it's also rooted in our soul's karma and our soul's journey as well. And so we are certainly challenged in terms of our ability to make adjustments and to be prepared for what we can't prepare for, or to be prepared for what we may not expect. And again, that's part of creating a space to receive, right? Just because we put out the stocking, we don't know what's going to be put in there. And we want to be able to emotionally and intuitively adjust ourselves in that process. And perhaps we're getting exactly what we need, even if we don't want it. And most of the time when there's an unexpected storm, we kind of don't want it because there's backlash, right? There is destruction, but also too, thunderstorms and lightning in particular are natural homeostasis, right? Lightning is the result of an imbalance in the charges in the atom. It is electrons moving to redistribute that charge, and that is the release. So maybe, just maybe, even though it's unexpected, maybe it's not in our control, just maybe this is exactly what we need in order to get where we are going, okay? So from there, right after that is when Mercury comes into a direct square, like I said, with Neptune in Pisces. And for all of our intentions of putting on the mask of where we're trying to get to, the use of our imagination and make-believe, right, in anticipating our higher stages of development, right, for as much as we want to put on the hat and the glasses and imitate the features that belong to that level of consciousness that we haven't quite got to yet, and identifying with a guru or a master, and take that very loosely. I'm not suggesting it at all that this is about identifying with a guru or a master, right? Because that time is over. That time is over. We're the guru. We're the master of ourselves, right? But it's the idea of identifying with some sort of symbolic abstraction of where we want to get to. So, and to acknowledge that growth, natural growth, organic growth follows a hierarchical process, right? All you have to do is just observe nature, and you will see that growth happens along a very specific hierarchical trajectory, right? In an organic way. So as much as we want to identify with this, imitate those features, and have this really exceptional skill in analyzing our personal opportunities while we are navigating all these dimensions of experience right now, the negative aspect of this is that our vision is very distorted. And in that square to Neptune, as I've talked about many times and will continue to talk about, there's a totally, it's one thing to imitate the features and identify with the guru. It's another thing entirely to actually take that take that ayahuasca and actually dissolve into the full experience itself. And that is way more powerful and way more impactful than our use of our imagination and imitating where we're trying to go. And Mercury is, we're really going to think about this and really utilize our mental capacity to bring ourselves to this place. But the square to Neptune that is going to, I mean, Neptune's just going to touch it and be like, just dissolve it all in one fell swoop. So be aware of that, we can imitate things all we want, but we have to be prepared for what the actual experience is going to bring to us. And that is certainly part of Neptune and Pisces. And that, again, this is where we can easily get lost. Propaganda, addiction, escapism, psychosis, right? Martyrdom, all of these things. Infection. Infection and epidemic is a big part of the Pisces archetype too, because this is how things spread, is through our actual contact with each other at an energetic level. So that this square is some of the most, I think. Now everybody, as astrologers, people are drawn to certain things and put them through their own filter. So some people are going to have different ideas about this. But from my perspective, this is going to be a very challenging aspect throughout the next couple of weeks. Mercury, the sun, and then when Mars gets to that point. Mars hasn't even gotten into Sagittarius yet. Talk about social justice warrior. Jeez. And I say that because I have Mars in Sagittarius, so I know what the potential is for that. So as we move on here, though, we're going to go then to the moon is actually then comes into a trine with another Gemini aspect, which is, if we can see it, let me make sure you can see. Yep. Which is, drum roll please, asteroid Ceres in Gemini, 2 to 3 degrees Gemini. So asteroid Ceres, she's just kind of being very formal about it all and not really thinking or feeling. I shouldn't say not thinking. She doesn't have any feelings about all of it. She is just seeing the very, the very formal and crystallized thought process of rationality when it comes to this and that. And if you remember the story or the myth of Ceres, her daughter Persephone, she's getting pretty close there to Pluto. Venus is, by the way. So I keep getting this Persephone vibe with Venus meeting Pluto, but meeting Pluto in, coming into the crone phase too. So there's a different perspective. But Ceres, right? She is so distraught of losing her daughter because once you go into the underworld, you don't come back. That Mercury goes in and brokers a deal. And then, and this is Gemini. So it is the territory of Mercury. So goes in, brokers the deal. And there's the deal. Half the year, Persephone stays with Hades because that is his territory. And she went there willingly. And the other half of the year, Persephone is allowed back to the surface with the living and with her mother. And in those time frames, Ceres is, what is she doing? Right? You guys probably know the half of the year that she is with her daughter. This is where everything is growing and lush and giving us all of the sustainment that we need. Well, the other half of the year is the time when Persephone is in the underworld and she is distraught and in her way of balancing the scales, she retracts and everything goes under as well. And so also too, this story represents the triple goddess of maiden, woman, crone as well, and showing that for this process to even the feminine process to unfold in its entirety, there needs to be a yin and yang as well. And it's very much from a Gemini perspective that is not really taking into account anybody else's emotions about it. It's very just like, okay, it's this for that. And it's very formalized and there's not a lot of room for anything else. It's just, this is what it's going to be. And so the moon coming into another air trine in Aquarius with Ceres in this moment is very fascinating, because the Sabian symbol is a deserter from the Navy. This is in Aquarius, 3 degrees Aquarius. So these 3 degrees are the first real trifecta of or trinity of the signs, or the elements associated with the signs, the 3 in all of them. And so it's kind of, like I said, the trinity, it all comes together. And so with Aquarius, a deserter from the Navy, it's the idea that the individual's self-realization through repudiating a collective status that has become unbearable is why they desert from the Navy. And the Navy is specific because you're talking about the realm of Pisces, the ocean, right? And what regulates and is responsible for that area. So it takes genuine courage to repudiate what ultimately is seen as meaningless loyalties, right? And so it takes real courage in some ways to just stand in a very, mental, mind-oriented perspective that doesn't really take into account any emotions directly of like, well, if this is going to happen, this is what else is going to happen. And it's really going to be strongly anchored, I think, with this moon in Aquarius, of like having the courage to just be like, nope, this is where I'm aligned. And in fact, I'm going to walk away or desert that which is, I feel, unbearable. So, and it's part of the natural process, and there's no way out of it, right? When things become unbearable, or an individual or a group of people, or we feel on the inside that this has become meaningless, why would we give ourselves to this process if it's meaningless to us? And we're out. We're out. And it does take genuine courage. And I think kind of having the detachment emotionally that Ceres has, because Ceres is like, I don't give a fuck. Like, when my daughter is gone, I am taking it all away. And I'm not suggesting that we should employ that particular strategy. What I'm saying is that she don't care. She don't care. She's just like, this is it. And this is how I'm balancing out within myself. And the earth will do the same thing. And I think if we are able to genuinely stand with the planet and the planetary organic body as a living organism in terms of where our loyalty is, I think that we're going to be okay. But it takes real courage. The moon then comes into a sextile. Let's go back here. And then later today, as the moon makes her transit through Aquarius, she's going to then trine Black Moon Lilith, also 6 to 7 degrees of Gemini. And this is that primal, deep connection that we don't even realize is actually operating under the surface for us, of survival and self-preservation, that has to do with being in full communion and trust with the natural world, right? It's the idea that we have faith, primordial faith in the hidden and sustaining power of life, which is water, right? It's the bucket and the well and the water that fills the well from the rain. And so there's a fundamental trust and creation with life. And so when the moon meets this point, I actually didn't get a chance to write this one down, but I want to, in Sabian symbol. Oh yeah, I remember now, the child being born out of the egg. And so, again, there's another air trine. You know, this moon in Aquarius is making all of these air trines with all of these really strong feminine, or the north node of the moon, which is still distinctly feminine energies today. So again, while, you know, the cosmic egg of the child being born out of the cosmic egg, so to speak, and we're feeling that and we're acknowledging that, and maybe there's a part of us that's starting to come out of that egg right now, like intuitively and emotionally. Again, it's finding a base and a traction and an anchor and and it's creating a foundation with a part of ourselves that is has uncompromising faithfulness in the and trust with life itself. And this is where the idea of the simple organic integrity comes from. And this is the purity of everything, adding up to any individual character. So again, if we want that, what comes out of that egg to be aligned with simple organic integrity, it'll be because of our ability to tap into an even deeper part of ourselves that wants to not only survive, but it wants to thrive. Okay. And, there's a drawing in and giving out constantly as well, right? You're not hoarding the water in the well. You are using the water for, to sustain you and to give you what you need, because you trust it, right? You trust it. And that is going to make an impact on what comes out of that egg within us, right? What is the next iteration of who we are? What's the next, mutation in some ways of who we are? That's going to come from tapping into this primordial faithfulness in our organic integrity. So when the moon then comes into a sextile, right now it's starting to make these sextiles to, at least one to Chiron in Aries, right? And this is, and then we'll meet Saturn by the end of today, and we will get a very clear, potent connection. It'll really stabilize our emotions around like, oh, I'm seeing things for what they, and people for who they really are. And so when the moon first comes into a sextile with Aquarius, or Chiron, excuse me, there is the acting out of the vision, right? We act out the vision. It's the seer becomes the doer, right? The flag, which is the symbol, actually turns into the eagle, which is another symbol, but one is very abstract and the other is very dynamic, right? We take the abstract symbol and it turns into a dynamic process or action. This is where the moon is. If we can do this, right, we can apply or invest this into where Chiron is and actually, we've been focused on the full potential of who we could each individually be. And then we can apply this and invest this into the really strong feeling of finally, we're not a symbol of ourselves anymore. We're actually going to activate ourselves. And this is, again, it's emotional. It's based in our subconscious. It's something that we're each feeling a drive toward. And then from there is when the moon then meets Saturn, like right after. And this is by the end of today, of course. And so by the very end of today, in the evening or overnight, perhaps, depending on where you are in the world, this is where our emotions become very stabilized, maybe even too stabilized, maybe a little too dense, but it's going to be kind of like a tough love thing, right? Of just like, you know what? We can have all of these big picture ideas over here in Sagittarius, but at the end of the day here, literally at the end of the day, we're going to have a very stable and sobering realization of who people really are. And again, this is all part of going back to that chess game and realizing the political and social conflict that both sides are in fact being managed, and the controlled demolition is not coming from just one side, it's coming from both sides. And are we actually are we okay with that? Are we truly okay with that? Are we comfortable? Are we willing to let this process be managed by people who feel like they know better, regardless if they have good intentions or not? Because the road to hell is paved in good intentions. And just because you have good intentions doesn't mean you're actually doing the right thing. And this is why it's important that you're tapped into your own higher self at every given moment, because that's going to guide you to where you need to go. So, sobering realization. So, and then you'll see that by the time we get into the evening and overnight, this is just as the day crosses over into the 8th here on the east coast of the US, we're going to see that Mars comes into that square with Jupiter, and it's going to be a very distinct, aggressive, like I said, a very forceful and aggressive glorification of our communal values as a result of what we have investigated, discovered, come to learn about the power of our communion. And that in itself is not negative. The square to Jupiter, though, in Aquarius is, all of the resources that we can gather, and all of the good fortune that comes from our ability to actually connect into the delicacy of feeling of nature, right? Because that's, for all of the futuristic, innovative, almost technological type of focus that Aquarius could represent, especially because of things like the internet is a very Aquarian thing, right? And, futuristic technology and AI, those are all very Aquarian things to a certain extent. It's really about our connection to nature and our ability to align with the natural world and align our feelings with the resonance of the natural world. That's really the highest expression of Aquarius. And that's where the resources are going to come from. Not to say that we shouldn't back up each other. And that's really important. And Mars is going to have us act on that. But the square is really going to test test us, because those two very dynamic objects here are going to be really advocating for their own position. And the square there, especially a fixed square, when they meet in a fixed position like that, they are just going to kind of crumple when they meet. And it's going to maybe crumple us as well. So when you are flexible and you lean into the square rather than resist it, you learn so much about yourself, and it keeps you in your lane and it keeps you on task. And so finding the point where you actually finding the impact point and leaning into it is where you're going to learn the most. We're all going to learn the most in terms of how we stay aligned with the natural resonance of the entire collective and staying intact through that, but also too having the courage, having the ambition, having the fearlessness of Mars to act on and really express, but mostly act on, I would say, act on and in accordance with these cultural values that are so strong, they literally hold the bonds together. And that's what Scorpio, I think, really represents. When you start really getting down to the minutia of how matter is held together, you see that it's a bonds between atoms, and you really find that in the Scorpio realm. That's the power of communion and cooperation of matter, right? It's the bonds between the atoms. And when you break those bonds, power is released, isn't it? So that's very interesting too. So I'm going to leave it at that. My friends, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. I'm just going to, I hope you have a great day. Take very good care of yourselves. And if you need anything, it's all in the description box below. And so I am going to new outro, and we will be together tomorrow for the we'll be together for the daily medicine transmission. My bad. I am I'm working on this whole process here because this is brand new. So take care of yourselves. I love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. God bless you. Bye.